built Aces purely on pride. I was just like, look at me. I've built this from the ground up. I have employees. I'm making more than I make at the fire department. And then once my faith life was turned around, I looked at it and I was disgusted with it. Like, man, I built this purely on just pure pride, look at me type thing. It's almost like self-run now. I was disgusted with it. I was disgusted with myself. There's no gain for the kingdom at all through this. And I was like, I want to build something separate that can be truly about building the kingdom and giving glory to God. For a Christian-based apparel brand, specifically to golf, just the golf attire that can be worn anywhere in the business setting, church, out to dinner, anything. So I was like, and that's perfect. I'm already play golf. I'm looking for all these shirts. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I can make like 2 shirts and a hat and see what happens. And in my head, I was like, shoot, if I could do, let's say, 12,000. Say I can get up to $1,000. I bet I could get there in 5 years. I didn't know what I didn't know. And some of the first designs, I remember my wife, she was like, I don't think anybody's gonna buy that. She's like, that looks like something that would be in Mardell's, and that it would be a gift that a grandmother would give an 18-year-old that would stay in the closet. What's funny is that design is our #1 selling polo.
Oh.
So what's funny is it's a big, told you so. I'd always tell my wife, this was the first design I made. If someone doesn't want to wear this, then so
what's the
be
design?
It.
Before we jump into this week's podcast, I want to invite you to join my free community for faith-driven business leaders on School. I just launched it. We don't hold back the conversation in there, and there's no business topics off limits. I want to discuss them all. This community was designed for you and I. Don't make the same mistakes I did. Join today, and you'll find my framework already in there on how to position your business to grow. Scaling can be easy if you spend the time developing the foundation. Also, I reveal the 5 biggest mistakes a business owner can make in their businesses. I'll leave a link below for the free School community. I'll see you in there. Welcome back to the podcast. I've got a new friend, Michael Happel. Welcome to the podcast, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
We met through Chris Hansen, and I'm grateful to get to know you. We talked a couple weeks ago about your entrepreneurial venture at Fig Tree Golf, and I'm just anxious for you to kind of share your testimony today, and then also share a little bit more about what you're doing at Fig Tree Golf. Yes. So today's guest is Michael Happel. He has been a firefighter for 15 years. He's an entrepreneur and the founder of Fig Tree Golf. For 8 years of building a real estate media company, he launched Fig Tree Golf just 2.5 years ago, which is a faith-driven apparel brand and already nearing 7,000 orders. But this brand is more than golf. Fig Tree partners with Buckner International to support adoption and foster care. He teams up with Drip Golf, and it's built on the belief that everything we do, even playing golf, can be done for the glory of God. I love the mission that you have, and even some of your proceeds supporting Buckner International. That's pretty exciting to see. So let's start with your testimony, because you shared a little bit with me last time about your testimony, and it's pretty awesome. So let's start with that.
Yeah. So from the beginning, I grew up Catholic. Family was Catholic, and then kind of stopped going to church when I was younger. I'm going to kind of get like a speed ramp of, to the nitty gritty, but met my wife in high school. We're high school sweethearts, and she started dragging me to church, and because I wanted to follow the pretty girl to church. When I was 18, I got baptized at her church. It was, I think, looking back, it was more of because she made comments of, I can't date or marry anybody that's not a Christian, and kind of like just coming from the Catholic Church and like what I believed, wasn't biblical. And so I got baptized. I think that was more so just to make sure she didn't break up with me at the time. But then, fast forward, considered myself a Christian, I guess. I went to a Baptist college in Arkansas, played football. And then I became a firefighter right after I got out of college, and it was with the Dallas Fire Department. I was there for 5 years, and I was kind of a black cloud. I saw a lot very fast, especially for a young kid, and kind of internalized it. Didn't really know how to process it, anything like that. And then, about 5 years in, I decided I wanted to move to. I wanted to slow down a bit, and I was really burnt out, and I was like, you know what, I want to work closer to home. I kind of want to slow down, and so that's when I moved over to Midlothian, and I guess my brain started decompressing of all the stuff that I'd seen, witnessed, was a part of, and everything. Prior to that, I had already started like having like questionings of faith, like where is God in all this, and just some of the worst things you probably couldn't even imagine. It's just it's insane what we as humans are capable of.
So you saw
And
all these things happen at your work as a fireman, going into these places, and it really affected you.
yeah,
It
and
really
that
affected you. Of course.
yeah, so and it's and it was kind of funny. It was like I work with guys in the military and stuff that got out of the military and then became firemen, and even some of the guys that were like infantry guys or anything like that had seen stuff overseas. They even like made comments like, "Dang, like this is worse than being like sometimes active military and seeing some of the stuff over what we saw." And
So why'd you call yourself a black cloud?
so right when I got out of paramedic school, um, black cloud is kind of like what you call someone where uh, when that person's on shift or if they're on a certain apparatus, most of the time they're going to be going to the crazy calls, the bad calls, and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And so it seemed like it was like the first like few months right out of the gate when I got through paramedic school and I got stationed to an ambulance. It was just like a snowball of just like every time I was on the ambulance or on the engine, something really bad was going to happen. And so like it almost became a joke. Is before I got my permanent assignment, there was guys that were like, I don't want to ride with Hap. I was like, someone's going to die today.
Oh no.
And so that was, I was 22 at the time, and I kind of wore it like as a badge of honor. Like I've seen stuff that guys that have been in this thing for 20 years have never seen, and then whenever I got to my permanent assignment, which was in South Dallas, probably one of the hardest places in Dallas. There's just gang violence, stuff happening to kids, and that was the catalyst of the stuff happening to kids, and that really kind of started messing with the brain chemistry a bit, and so yeah, that was like the black cloud of me in the fire service. Luckily, it kind of tapered off a little bit in my last year in Dallas, but then when I moved over to Midlothian, I was at a station where there was a couple guys that were not believers, and it was just a bad mixture of where I was in my headspace at the time, and then having kind of like their input on things, and then I kind of had like a straw that broke the camel's back moment. Probably one of the most horrific things I'll ever see, I'll ever be part of. It was to the point where we actually had like the hospital that we transported to, the nursing staff, the doctors, the state troopers, they actually came for a debriefing with us, and kind of like saying like, hey, y'all did the right thing. The things that y'all did, gave that kid a chance, and it was. I didn't realize it at the time how big of a thing it was at the time, but it was like looking back, and I was like going already down that path of like, where is God in all this? And that was the nail in the coffin of, what, there is no God, and if he is, he's a little kid on an anthill, and that's kind of like the mindset I had. And then from there it kept going downhill. Because
of all the things you're seeing to these kids, happen to these kids, you're just coming to the feeling like, how can God let this stuff happen to these kids?
Yeah, pretty much. And it was like, I mean, it's in my own hometown, and it's like, yeah, it was just, and I like, the stuff I'd seen before, like in Dallas, and even prior to this call here in Midlothian, it just the worst of the worst thing you could possibly imagine happening. It happened. I just was like, went off the deep end. It was like, you know what? I'm an atheist. There is no God. And so this was like blindsiding to my wife, because I think she started seeing the writing on the wall, because I started talking about stuff. And then kind of after this, I was dealing with like PTSD, like I couldn't sleep. And it was one of those things where, like, I remember when I was younger in the fire service, you would hear I was having problems, and I'm like, man, y'all are a bunch of wimps. It's like, y'all haven't seen the things that I've seen, and I've only been in here for X amount of years. Just kind of like just the pride,
Right.
being that type of kid.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so from about 2016-ish to about 2021, 2022, I considered myself an atheist. And it was tough. It was tough on our marriage, because my wife's dad is a non-believer, and she's always, said, like, I don't want the, marriage. I don't want that type of marriage. Like, they have a happy marriage, but she wants to have a husband that she can count on the faith aspect of a marriage, and being able to teach her kids and everything. So it was tough on her, but she, crazy faithful, prayerful, and she's kind of I feel like she's kind of like the main reason, other than the Holy Spirit working, but I feel like her prayers and the prayers of my friends and family and everything helped everything.
So what really brought you back from, now that you basically said I'm an atheist and you went off the deep end? What brought you back to, I mean, obviously your prayers to your wife, but what was that moment like?
So I don't know. There was, and then she's asked this question before, like the aha moment and everything. I think what happened is I was having some conversations with a pastor friend, because I enjoyed the debates. I enjoyed the arguments and everything, but it was always friendly. So we'd go to lunch and we'd have these theological discussions and stuff, and I'm coming from, reading like Richard Dawkins' book, and, just science, and putting my faith in all of these guys that profound atheists, like in their realm and all that kind of stuff. And it was just back and forth. And there was one lunch where we were eating, and he made a comment. He goes like, you know what? He goes, he's like, I love these conversations. He's like, but I don't think there's anything that I could ever say that would make you believe. He goes, you're going to have to prove it wrong yourself. And so I kind of took that by the horns, and
challenge
at the time. Yes. And at the time I was just about to start studying for a promotional exam to become an engineer, a driver. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to secretly read the Bible and the Gospels and everything, and kind of go through like commentaries. And I'm going to study for the driver exam, and, just the prideful side of me. And I was like, I'm going to write number 1 on the test, and I'm also going to do this. And during that time, there was kind of just like this weird, like subtle change. And then it was kind of like just one day I was reading it, and I was like, you know what? I think I believe this. And, yeah, that's kind of how that happened. And, started, sorry, I have my screens as my lights. Yeah, it was just kind of a subtle change. And I didn't want to just go straight to my wife and be like, you know what, hey, I believe. I wanted there to be actions before the words happened. And so, yeah, it was just like the subtle, like, hey, this is, paying attention in church, bringing a Bible, talking to my kids about God, reason for the season type stuff during Christmas, because that's a really easy thing to do with the kids. And so, yeah, it was just like.
What if your professional life and your business life is never a distraction to God's calling for your life? What if it's actually the center of it? For a long time, Christian professionals and business people have been made to feel like second-class citizens in the kingdom of God. I want you to know that you are not less called because you are a professional or a business owner. Richard Owen and I have put together this incredible gift from us to your life, the Joseph Culture, a kingdom marketplace blueprint to help you engage in the marketplace as a business professional. It's available on Amazon, on Kindle Worldwide. This book will change your life and everything you have been taught and told about what it means to walk your calling as a marketplace professional. I would love to encourage you, get a hold of this copy. It will change your life. And more interestingly, we actually have the Joseph Culture community we have set up, where you have a community of like-minded people, same tribe, kindred spirit. We have the same conviction and understanding that the marketplace is a frontier of kingdom influence. God bless you.
Yeah.
So God began to do kind of a new work in your heart through reading the Bible and discussions with your pastor friend. What was there a moment where it was like, I want to do something for God now? You went completely atheist to now you're running a business that specifically promotes Jesus and the cross and in the space of golf. How did you get from having an awakening, slow awakening, to going, I'm going to start a business that focuses on Jesus?
So during that time of me transitioning to Midlothian, I started Ace's Real Estate Media. And it was a way. So the reason why I did that was it was my wife wanted to stay home with the girls, and I wanted to provide that way because I knew it was kind of not like a dream, but like, being a stay-at-home mom and being able to be present and not having to work. It was really important to her. I would put her as the best mom in the world because the stuff that she does for our kids is insane. And so I wanted to provide that. So I built Aces purely on pride. Like, I was like, look at me, like I've built this from the ground up. I have employees. I'm making more than I make at the fire department. I bought a Mustang at one point. I built a pre-runner truck. Like, it was kind of those. It was just like a one thing after the other with that. And then once my faith life was turned around, I looked at it and I was disgusted with it. Like, I was like, man, like, I've built this. I mean, it was still like providing for our family to where my wife could stay home, but I was looking at it and I was like, man, I've built this purely on just pure pride. Look at me type thing. It was it's almost like self-run now. Like, my wife was, doing most of the scheduling and the nitty gritty stuff. And so it was kind of like her like little side job whenever the kids were at school. I was disgusted with it. Like, I was disgusted with myself. It felt, ick to me. And I was like, I did this. There's no gain for the kingdom at all through this. And I was like, I want to build something separate that can be truly about, building the kingdom and giving glory to God. And I had no idea what that looked like. I was like, what am I going to do? I went through everything. I looked at starting a turf company, and I was like, man, I could do this, and I could figure out a way to be able to, talk to people through this, or epoxy floor, or anything. I was looking for like really anything that I could just like, I could name it, I could build it, and I could use it as an avenue to, for being able to talk to people, being able to promote Jesus, being able to figure out a way to, rather than scream for a miracle, be the miracle type thing of being able to donate, like for foster and adoption. And we were at Shields one day, and we were upstairs, and I was looking for a golf shirt, and I was looking at them, and I mean, you know how some of the fashion is now, like you got cocktails and beer bottles on the shirts and everything. I was looking at it, I was like, man, I don't want to wear that. And I just had the thought in my head, like, man, I wonder what it would take to make one of these. And then that's kind of what that moment was. Like, it just kind of like it snowballed from there.
I love it. So it was just like an aha, like, I think I can do this. And then you just started doing the research, and I love how God, it doesn't always have to be like a booming voice. It's a lot of times he'll he'll slowly give us these ideas and kind of drop them like breadcrumbs throughout our lives, and we're like, you know what, I think I can do that. Maybe is God call? Is this where he wants me to go? And so it's like there's a faith aspect too that he wants you to kind of like walk it out in as well. So there's
Yeah.
So fig tree golf. What is fig tree golf? I know I mentioned it. But what do you do there?
Yeah. So we're Christian-based apparel brand specifically to golf. Like we said earlier, just the golf attire. It can be worn anywhere in the business setting, church, out to dinner, anything. So, and that's perfect. I was like, I'm already play golf. I'm looking for all these shirts. I'm like, maybe I can make like 2 shirts and a hat and see what happens. And in my head, I was like, shoot, if I could make it, if I could do, let's say, 12,000. I'd say I can get up to $1,000. Like, I bet I could get there in 5 years. Because I was like, I didn't know what I didn't know. And some of the first designs, I remember my wife, she was like, I don't think anybody's going to buy that. I was like, she's like, that looks like something that would be in Mardell's, and that it would be a gift that a grandmother would give an 18-year-old that would stay in the closet. And what's funny is that design is our #1 selling polo.
Oh, wow.
And yes. And so what's funny is like, it's a big, told you so. I'd always tell my wife, I was like, look, this was the first design that I made. I was like, if someone doesn't want to wear this, then so be it.
Design? What's the design?
The Fishers of Men.
Okay.
And it has the fish all the way across it. Now we have,
I saw that one.
4 renditions of it.
Okay.
And that's the #1 selling item. And it's like, and I told her, I was like, this is the point of the brand is, Jesus, it says it in the Bible, like, you're going to be coming with me, follow me, and you're going to be fishers of men. And I was like, man, that's perfect. And that was the idea behind the design, is someone could walk up and it's not, you can't really see it from, 10 or 15 away. But when you come up to someone and you're like, oh, wow, that's that. It's like, what's that shirt? What's that about? And then it's just like a segue into being like, oh, well, actually, like, I'm wearing this because it actually is referring to whenever, Jesus, called one of his disciples. And then you can kind of go down this like path of like the story about Jesus and why I believe and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, that,
is there a guiding scripture that you use, in your brand that's real important to you?
Yeah. So, 1 Corinthians, 10:31, we have that on every single polo. And then we also have it like on the inner linings of our hats.
So what does that say?
Whatever you do, whether you eat or drink, do it all for the glory of God.
Awesome.
And how I came up with that was we were sitting in church one day, and it was during like the building phase where I was wrestling with the idea. I'm like, man, why am I doing this? And if I do this, how will it be perceived? Like that I'm trying to make money off the word of God. And it was really tough struggle for me. Like I met with one of our pastors at our church. I was like, this is what I'm trying to do. I was like, but at the same time, I'm like I don't know how to juggle it. Like I was wrestling with it. I almost stopped at one point. Like I was like this isn't right type thing. Like how can I make money on this? Like, yes, I'm donating part of the profits and everything, but then it's like, it was really tough at the beginning. And I remember we were sitting in church, and our pastor, we were going over 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and we came to verse 31, and he made the church repeat it like 5 or 6 times. And during that time, I was just like sitting there, and I was like, that's it. That's what I want to be the foundation of the brand. We are doing this for the glory of God, and that if you decide that you want to wear the brand, like that should be kind of in your forethought. Like, okay, I'm going out to dinner, or I'm going out to lunch, or I'm playing golf. Like, you can do all of those things for the glory of God. It might be crazy minute and small little task or whatever, but you can still work for the kingdom, whatever that is. So yeah, that became the basis of the brand. And I was like, no matter what, all of our gear is going to be tied back to that. And so yeah, that's why we have it on the sleeve, and then we have it inside the hat.
That's so cool. It's kind of it reminds me of In-N-Out Burger. In-N-Out Burger has the little scripture underneath the cup or in different
Yep.
places. So it's named Fig Tree. Is there a meaning behind Fig Tree as
Yeah.
well?
So I wanted to kind of put myself into the brand a little bit, and it was another thing that I wrestled with too. I was like, what am I going to call it? I was like, I don't want it to be like some like you know cliche name. I went back and forth with a bunch of different stuff, and I remember whenever I was going through, I'm trying to debunk the gospels and all that kind of stuff. I remembered Luke, chapter 13, and he talks about the fig tree and the vineyard owner. When you look at the meaning of that parable, I was like, wow, like I was the fig tree. Like I should have been uprooted and cast into the fire. And I wanted to put that into the brand of like my own kind of testimony into it. And so that's how I felt. Like I was the bare fig tree, because in that parable, the vine dresser is kind of Jesus in the aspect of interceding for us, and working on our hearts and all that kind of
Right.
stuff. And so that's how I felt. I was like, you know what, I had my wife interceding for me, praying for me, and my friends and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of was given almost a second chance type of thing as far as like the faith side goes. And so that's what I wanted to put into the brand. So that's why we called it Fig Tree Ball.
I've got it pulled up here. It's Luke 13, starting in verse
69.
6. I'll go ahead and read it. Then he told this parable: a man had a fig tree growing in his vineyard, and he went to look for fruit on it, but didn't find any. So he said to the man who took care of the vineyard, for 3 years now, I've been coming to look for fruit on this fig tree and haven't found any. Cut it down. Why should we use it up? Why should it use up the soil? Sir, the man replied, leave it alone for 1 more year, and I'll dig around it and fertilize it. If it bears fruit next year, fine. If not, cut it down. That's so cool. I'm glad you brought that Luke 13, because there's a couple instances of different fig trees and even in the New Testament with Jesus. So that one, I love the symbolism even in fig trees as well. I've got 2 fig trees at my house, and
nice.
It requires the right environment to produce fruit. The fig trees aren't probably the best trees here in Texas, because they go dormant whenever it gets super cold and everything falls off. They just turn to sticks in the ground, which is what it is. It's the ugliest looking thing there. But I can set my watch for July. July is when the fruit comes, and even though it looks dead and dormant, it revitalizes as soon as it's in the right environment. And so it just goes to show, being in the right environment, if we put ourselves in the right environment, with great people around us, going to church and spending time in the Word and in His presence, we will produce much fruit. Because it's kind of like John, I think 15, where we're the vine, He's the branch, or we're the branches, He's the vine, and as we're connected to Him, we can bear much fruit. So you can't bear fruit unless you're connected to Him. I love that picture of the fig tree. And so, as a entrepreneur, as a faith-based entrepreneur and a faith-based brand, what's your biggest challenge you've experienced so far?
Probably the marketing side of things. I feel like that's probably the hardest part of running the brand. One, because I'm not like, I have a business degree or whatever, but I wasn't really on the marketing side. It was more of like I did like small business accounting stuff, but the marketing side was tough, because it's like, and I said this before, is I struggle with anytime we put something out, like on our Instagram page, and we start showing new product. It's like I have a really hard time with it, and I still do. And it's like I would rather, when someone looks at like our Instagram page, or like even like our email marketing, I want it more so to point back towards God, and not the brand. I know that's weird to say, but I'm like, I would rather them be inspired by what I'm putting out, like on our moment for Monday or like our tips of the week. And it's just been that's been the toughest part. And luckily I got teamed up with this marketing company from up north, and one of the guys actually owns a Christian apparel brand. And so it's been really nice to talk with him and be like, okay, this feels icky. Like, this just feels like straight marketing towards a product. I was like, but it needs to be the message. And during all that, that's how we developed this. He's like, the easiest way is this be the first thing that people see.
Right.
And so our secondary logo is, the club cross was like, that was kind of like the segue into being able to market the way that I wanted to. Is the first thing, they don't see the hat first, they see the cross.
Right.
And I was like, you should see the cross first. And so that's where and then it kind of like say like, oh, that's a cool hat. I wonder where that's from. Like, oh, it's a company called Fig Tree. And then it can segue into Fig Tree. And so that was like, okay, this is cool. So now like it really is, this is the first thing they're seeing. And then that can really start the conversation, because our tree logo is great. I love our tree logo. And I've had them on hats before. But they don't start the conversations like the club cross does. So, really quickly, I made this logo. I was like, I made sure like there was nothing else out there like it. I went through, it's trademarked now. So so that was a really tough for me at the beginning, is like, oh, this does not feel right. I don't like the way this marketing is. And we still, our marketing team, they'll say like, hey, we should push this out. This has been working really well. Let's double down on this. And sometimes I have to be like, look, yes, that might work, but that's not our identity. That's not how I want our brand to be seen. I want them to see God first, and then they can see it. And so that's been the toughest part.
So do you have any famous brand ambassadors now that are repping your product out on the
So this was about a year and a half ago. My marketing guy texted me, and he was like, "Do you realize who you just sent an order to?" And I'm like, "No," because at the time, whenever I kind of like let him take over the marketing stuff, I wasn't really looking at like the names every time they popped across. And I go, "No," and I think I was at the fire station, and I go, "No, who?" And he was like, "Big Ben," and I was like, "Who's Big Ben?" And he goes, "Ben Roethlisberger," and I'm like, "Nah." I was like, "There's no way." And so I went and looked, and I was like, "Oh wow." I was like, "Well, maybe it's just someone who has the same last name." And so I went and looked at the address, and I'm like, "Okay, yeah, that's probably Ben Roethlisberger with that size of house." Yeah. And so we sent some stuff to him, and I was like, "Man, that's really cool." And then it was like a few weeks later, he placed another like order, and I was like, "This is really cool." And so I was like, "You know what? I have his email. He'll probably not respond back." But I was like, "I just want to know how he found us." And so I sent him an email, and he replied really quickly, and he was like, "Hey, like, we were actually at a junior tournament. There was this PGA professional up north in Pennsylvania. His name was Tim Guston, and him and his son were wearing our stuff. And Ben Jr. really liked liked it. And he was like, "Dad, I want that." And so Ben Roethlisberger got on there and bought some stuff, and I was like, "That's really cool." And so, we've sent him some stuff, and then he got us hooked up with this guy named Jeff Danner, who owns Drip Golf. They were like, "Hey, Ben wants you to be a part of his tournament up here in Nemacolin, which is the most insane resort probably no one's ever heard of."
Nice.
So I was like, "Okay." I was like, "What does that entail?" And he's like, "We want to make custom head covers. Ben Roethlisberger is going to sign them. He's going to give them to all the players. We want you to come up and talk." And I'm like, and at the time I'm like, "Oh my gosh." Like, I hadn't really like talked about my testimony too much, like, to like a large group of people. And I was like, "Okay, like, sure." And so my dad, my mom, and me and Casey, my wife, went up there, and I got to met Ben. And like during that time too, like in between there, um, I was at the fire station again, and we had sent him a couple hats, and he sends me a text message, and I didn't have his number on my phone yet, but it said, because like iPhones will say like maybe a name, and it said maybe Ben Roethlisberger, and I'm like looking at it, I was like, no way. And he sends me a text message. He was like, hey Mike, he was like, I just wanted to thank you for the hats. And he was like, and he sent me a picture. So Ben Roethlisberger has a podcast called Footballing with Ben, and it actually is, it's taken off, and it's really cool. They talk, it's all football, but it's a really cool podcast. And he sends me, and sitting right over his like left shoulder is my hat that we had sent him. He's like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, Fig Tree hat's going to be on my podcast background now. And I'm like, that is really cool. I was like, but this is wild. Like, Ben Roethlisberger's texting me. And so, yeah, we went up there. I got to share my testimony with like 120 kids. And yeah, that relationship has just grown. We're doing another event with him in June.
Very cool.
And, yeah, we're making custom hats for him. And yeah, it was really cool. Like that was just kind of like a weird, like connection of things.
So what would you, how would you encourage someone who feels called to start a business that is faith forward? Would you have what encouragement would you have to give them who's afraid to step out, but they feel called to do this?
I say just take the leap, but make sure you're doing it for the kingdom. That's what I would say. Pray a lot about it, because it's hard,
right?
Especially when it has to do with your faith and everything, because you're going to be challenged. We get messages, and we'll get emails too about how we're not doing the right thing, or we'll get stuff from non-believers, saying like, oh, just another Christian trying to make money off the poor, or something like, some stuff like that. But I love those. I'll honestly say I am, to an extent, enjoy when I get those messages or those comments, because it's a good segue into, hey man, I see where you're coming from. I had the same thought process. I thought every single person that was employed at a church was a crook and a hypocrite, and and so I can go down that way, and I can have conversations with them at the same level. It was like, hey, I used to believe the same way you did. I've said the same things you said. But yeah, back to like the original, like I would say, like just, pray on it, and make sure the why is there. It's not, it's not for self-glorification. It truly is like you're trying to build the kingdom further.
That's good. So what's the vision for Fig Tree Golf? What do you aspire to grow it to? Or
I've been asked this question before, and honestly, it's whatever. I'm kind of like on the ride of whatever God has in store, kind of thing. From a personal, what would be cool? Like I would love to see a PGA Tour professional wear my stuff on tour.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to be able to get the brand that far to where, if they're sitting in an interview and they're wearing, a Club Cross hat or like a shirt, the brand recognition of, oh, that's really cool. And then it's on a bigger scale of like, I wonder why he's wearing a hat that has like two, weird looking clubs making a cross. And I would love for that to happen. But a lot of the things that have happened for our brand, like the growth and all that kind of stuff, it is all God. It's not me. It's not a single person or group or whatever. It's there's been some divine things I feel happen with this. And, I'm kind of at the point now where I'm like, I'm on this ride. Like I said at the beginning, I was like, if in 5 years, like I can do, say $1,000 a month, and I can donate, X amount, like that'd be really cool. Like as like a side project. And now we're starting year 3, and we're in the we're getting close to that 7,000th order, and never
That's
thought that would.
Cool. So how do people find your brand and buy some product?
Yeah, so figtreegolf.com. We're like 99% all online right now. We have been in a couple clubs. We're working on. There's a club that's local here that we're getting some stuff done. But yeah, figtreegolf.com. Yeah, pretty much. You'll if you start looking up like Christian golf apparel, it'll flood your Instagram or Facebook.
Thanks to the marketing guy.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and that is tough too. Like the Google and the Meta marketing is tough because you can't just like you can't pinpoint like a religious group on that. Like you kind of have to do this, and that's where like this comes in handy because I can market it like a normal golf brand, but I can kind of put these little nuggets in there to where our stuff won't get flagged, to where people know like, okay, this is a faith-based, is they're repping Jesus and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I'm starting to get all the ads because I clicked on your website, or I clicked on the Instagram, so I'm getting all the ads. That's awesome.
I apologize.
No, it's good. I'm going to put a link for his website down below. So if you're interested in buying a hat, a shirt, I know I am. So I'm going to get a few things. I've already told my wife that I wanted. So if you're interested in those, I'll put a link down in the description. But I really appreciate your time, Michael, and really love hearing your story. And I'm looking forward to what God does, the doors he opens for your business and brand in the future.
Thank you. I appreciate it.